Hello everyone, Desert Gardener here, and today we're going to be tasting and reviewing a number of different tomatoes that I'm growing this year. So there are a few things that I'm growing for the first time and a few things that I grow every year. So let's start out with the large red cherry. Now I've talked about this before, and most of you are probably familiar with cherry tomatoes, especially the large red cherry, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. It is one of my favorite. It usually produces very well, although this year it hasn't been producing as well. I think it's because of the heat. It's about 110 out every afternoon, and it just doesn't seem to be producing quite as well as I've seen it produce in the past. Let's give it a try. It's firm, kind of sweet. I do think it's a very good staple tomato. Nothing special, not terrible. I do think the black cherry is a better one, and we'll talk more about that one in a minute. While we're talking cherry tomatoes, I think I'm going to jump to the Sun Gold. Now, they're kind of small, and they ripen to this nice sort of orange gold color. I've been hearing a lot about this tomato. I've been thinking about growing it for years, and finally I broke down and purchased some seeds. And I've already tried this. It is an absolutely amazing tomato. It is much sweeter, a bit not quite as firm. It's a bit softer, a bit juicier. And a lot of people say it's one of their favorite tomatoes, and I have to agree. I think it's probably one of my favorite tomatoes now. The black cherry was one of my favorites for years, but I'm really liking the Sun Gold, and I'm definitely going to be growing that again in the future. Let's jump to the Arkansas Traveler. Now, I've been growing this a few times as well. It's doing very well this year. Like the Sun Gold, it's been producing a lot, so it grows well in the desert and well in the heat. Just like the Arkansas Traveler, it's specifically been produced to grow well in hot environments. So if you're in the desert like myself, this is definitely a good one to grow, and it's about a medium-sized tomato. This one is very juicy. Definitely not as flavorful as the cherry tomatoes, but I think that's pretty normal. Cherry tomatoes are always going to be sweeter than a beefsteak type tomato. This is a smaller beefsteak type tomato, but it is a beefsteak variety, and it has a very similar flavor to it. So flavor-wise, I don't think it's much different than a lot of other tomatoes of its type, but it does produce so well here in the desert in the heat. I definitely recommend it for anyone who lives in an area where it's very hot. So this is a Rutgers. Now this is, I think, the only heirloom tomato that I'm going to be growing this year. It's been around for quite a while. I've grown it a few times before. It's not near as juicy. It's very thick. Definitely not as sweet. In fact, it's a little bland. It's definitely not my favorite. It does usually produce pretty well, although this year I haven't been getting it in near as many. And as I said, it's been extra hot this year, so it may not be a perfect one to grow in the desert. And flavor-wise, it's a little boring, so I definitely don't think I'm going to continue growing this one, and it's not one that I would recommend. Let's see what else. There's the black cherry. I haven't gotten any this year. It is one of my favorites. There's the black beefsteak. Now, I'm growing this one for the first time. I do see some very small ones, so my plan is to stop this video in a few minutes and then restart it once I get some more of these other ones. I'm growing a green zebra. Now, I've tried growing that in the past and didn't produce anything, and I'm worried the same thing is going to happen this year. So I definitely don't think it's going to be a good option for you desert folks. and Indigo Rose. Now, I don't think I've grown that one before as well. It's one of those that ripens to a nice orange color. I don't know if it's going to be as sweet as the Sun Gold, but again, I'm going to stop this video here, and once some of these other ones ripen up, we'll talk about those then. Okay, I'm back, and we got a few more varieties to try. Now, I didn't get any black cherry or black beef. I'm not really sure why. Black cherry did really well last year, so I'm not sure why I got nothing this year. I guess it's just, you know, one of those things. I did, however, finally get a few green zebras. So let's give this guy a try. I really like this. Kind of crunchy, very tart, a little acidic, obviously not as sweet as the cherry tomatoes, but I really like this. This is definitely one of my favorites. I really like the looks of them too, being red and green striped like this, and interesting shapes. I really like these a lot. This is going to be one of my new favorites that I'm going to start growing all the time. Let's see what else we got. We got an Indigo Rose. Let's grab this one here. Now, they're definitely not red. They're supposed to ripen to more of a bluish color, but this one's kind of a pinkish green color. But let's give it a try. I'm actually trying this for the very first time, so I have no idea what I'm going to get here. That's actually very nice. It does have a really thick skin though, way thicker than I was expecting. But it does have a nice flavor. It's kind of sweet. It tastes a little like a cherry tomato, but in a much larger tomato. So if you don't like a lot of little tomatoes, this might be a good option. Now, they didn't produce very well, so I don't think they do really well in the desert. But if you live someplace else, this might be something to try. Let's see what else we've got. Gardener's Delight. Now, this is a cherry tomato. Looks very much like a large red cherry. This is another one that I've grown for the first time, and I'm going to be trying for the very first time. Has a very typical cherry tomato taste. I'm not sure if I would consider it better than just a plain large red cherry. Like I said, it has a very good following online. A lot of people really recommend it. Seems very average to me. Typical cherry tomato, other than the fact that it didn't produce as well as a regular cherry tomato. So I think I would go with a regular cherry tomato over the Gardener's Delight. Let's see what we got next. Next, Amish paste. Actually didn't have any ripe. It's very similar to aroma tomato. It's a cooking tomato. Didn't have any ripe. They're not producing very well. So again, it's another one that if you live in the desert, I probably wouldn't recommend. Then we have a Brandywine. Now, I had forgotten all about that I was even growing any Brandywine. That's why I didn't mention it in the first half of the video. It's an heirloom tomato. It's a very common beefsteak tomato. It's very nice. It has a good balance between being sweet and acidic. I think that's why people like this one a lot. However, this is another one that doesn't grow very well in the desert. So I probably won't be growing this one again. I've had too much trouble with it. I'll often get only one tomato per plant. It just does not grow very well in the desert. If you live back east or someplace where it's cooler, I think I would definitely recommend the Brandywine. It's something that, it's an heirloom that a lot of people really like. Just doesn't grow very well here in the desert. The next one would be Ace 55. It's another heirloom tomato. I've grown it before. It's a very typical tomato with a very typical tomato taste. I don't think there's anything special about it. It reminds me a little bit of the Rutgers that I talked about earlier. It's nothing special, a little boring. It usually produces pretty well. So if you live in the desert, it's not a bad option. But taste-wise, it's nothing really special. But so just to recap, the Arkansas Traveler I highly recommend, especially if you live in the desert. It produces so well. You'll get absolutely a ton of tomatoes out of that. The Sun Gold, the Black Cherry, the Indigo Rose, and my new favorite, the Green Zebra. I am definitely going to be growing this again next year. Okay, well, I hope this is helpful for you, help you decide what you'd like to grow next year. If you got anything out of it, all I ask is if you hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos like this, you'll have to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.